Let faith arise. Let all agree. There's no power like the power
Sing that again. I
of
will believe.
Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus.
Let faith arise.
Let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that
Jesus can't do.
There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise. Let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus.
Yeah. Father, we're thankful for that power today. It's the same power that rose you from the grave, God. We now have that opportunity to be able to receive that power this morning as we sing your praises to your honor and your glory. Let us sing now one more to who you are and what you mean to us. We love you so much.
I am holding on to faith, 'cause I know you'll make a way. I don't always understand, and I don't always get to see, but I will believe it. I will believe it. You make mountains move. You make giants fall. You use songs of praise to shake prison walls. I will speak to my fear. I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. You're forever faithful, Lord. I am standing on your word, calling heaven down to earth, and you will fight my enemy. This will end in victory, but I will believe it. Yes, I will believe it. You make mountains move. You make giants fall. You use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear. I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. You were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. And I know that I know you never fail. Yes, I know that I know you never will. And I know that I know you never fail. Yes, I know that I know you never will. Come on, lift up your voice and sing. You make mountains move. You make giants fall. You use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear. I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. You make mountains move. You make giants fall. You use songs of praise to shake prison walls. And I will speak to my fear. I will preach to my doubt that you were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. You were faithful then. You'll be faithful now. Yeah. You can have a seat.
All right, so I have an important question for you guys. It's a deep one today. I know none of the guys or anyone doesn't want to be part of this, so only 7 of you are going to participate, but I'm excited for you 7, okay? So here's the question. How many of you in this room, this is actually a serious question too, how many of you in this room right now, just a quick show of hands, would say, I know, Trent, I know what I want out of my life. Like I know what I want to accomplish. I know my goals. I know who okay, 2, 3? Okay, good, 3. Okay, how many of you say, Trent, I really have no clue what's going on. I'm just trying to survive the whirlwind of the day. Anyone just say, I'm just kind of living life, right? Right? I love when high school kids graduate, like ex-football players I had, and I see them like the next year or something, and they're standing by the fence. I'm like, what are you into? Just chilling. Okay, it means you're not doing anything, right? There's no plan. There's no anything. And that's for us. And here's what got me. So I think it was a year and a half ago, we actually did a Disney World trip, right? And we've been multiple times. Yeah, I flex there a little bit on you guys. We go all the time. No, but I've been a few times. But even planning that, okay, my wife and I, our family, we do it ourselves, don't go through any travel agent. But you have a lot. Like they start sending you stuff, and it's like, hey, this is a quick service, set down meals. When do you want your fast pass? So it's like you're spending months planning multiple things if you want to do it well. And what hit me about 4 or 5 months in is I thought, I am planning way more for a Disney trip than I ever do for my life. Like truly, like I'm thinking more about the details, my next steps, way more than life. And then it also hit me kind of sadly, this Disney trip probably costs more than my actual life, right? If you see my insurance policy, the Disney World trip is more. So you kind of get that. But I want to kind of challenge you today to think about your life. So a few weeks back, a group that shows up on Thursday, and me just being a complete dirtbag, I told them it was going to be Carnival Thursday, which they knew it wasn't going to be Carnival Thursday. But when they got in, we actually did a funeral exercise. So is there anything worse than someone telling you you're going to have a carnival day and then they talk about funerals? No, horrible. Everyone was mad at me. They all wanted to leave. But it's really, truly sat down with them. And the thing I challenged them to do, I read a book several years back, and the guy said, what I want to challenge you to do, he said, I know it's gruesome. I know most people don't like to do this, but he said, it really is valuable because in the Old Testament, if you remember Solomon, he said this, he said, hey, number your days. Why? So you might gain wisdom. See, Solomon knew something. He said, hey, all of our days are numbered, all of us in here. So since your days are numbered, it would be wise for you to actually number your days so you can make them count. That's how you gain wisdom. So anyways, one of the things I did was powerful is in this book, the guy said, I want you to think about your funeral. You walk up to the casket and it's you. And he said, as gruesome as that sounds, here's why that's valuable. I want you to think about your spouse. I want you to think about your kids walking up. They're all going to say something about you, right? And then he said, I want you to think about one of your closest friends, people you worked with. What are they going to say about you? And his whole point was, why don't you determine that and plan that now and then try to live that out every day? Well, that was profound to me. Never even thought about that before. So I tried over the last several years to kind of do something like that. But here's the kicker. You see, I'm competitive. Anybody here competitive? Like you only play to win, right? One of my favorite owners all the time, Al Davis, remember Oakland Raiders? What did he say? Just win, baby, right? How you going to win? I don't care how you win, just win, right? And I've shared this story years back, but it's true. When my wife and I first started dating, because I am a true gentleman, I decided to take her. Where do you take someone to impress them early on when you're dating? Chesapeake Giovanni's, correct. Yes, that's where I took her. Chesapeake Giovanni's. So we go to Chesapeake Giovanni's, and they have like a little arcade / little game room. Well, they have an air hockey table, right? So in there, and my wife, she'll verify this is a true story. There's this little girl in like pink cowboy boots, like a little jean skirt, and she has that whatever the thing's called, the paddle, and she's just hitting the side because she didn't put money in, so it's obviously not running. Well, I'm with this girl I'm trying to impress, my future wife, and I'm like, I get up, I don't say anything, I walk over real cool, I put in 4 quarters, I'm like, hey, would you like to play? And this little girl's like, yeah, like she's excited. I look over, my wife's giving me like that, I cannot keep my hands off this guy, right? Like she's excited, and I'll be honest, I smoked that kid. It was 7-0. My wife will tell you this. It was 7-0 in like 2 minutes. She was awful. Like, I'm just like, how can you be this bad at air hockey? I wasted $1, right? And all joking aside, that really, my family will tell you, and my kids sadly are kind of like that. Like, it's like, you just win. Well, here's the reason I tell you that. I didn't derail, I promise. The reason I tell you that is because in all my life, it's about accomplish, win, do more, make more, be better, be the best in the room, be better than everybody else. And when I thought about my funeral, I didn't care if my wife or my kids said any of that. I really didn't. I wanted them to talk about my character and what I meant to them as a dad and a husband. I wanted my friends to talk about, like he was who he was. Wasn't saying he's perfect, but he was honest about it. He never tried to put on a front. He never tried to act like he was something. So all those things were character issues. So it hit me. Character is way more valuable to me. Maybe not you. I'm not telling you how to live your life. It's your life. You get to pick that. I'm just telling you, maybe you should think through how you want to live your life. So today, as we get into Matthew chapter 2, I want to give you a couple steps in one of the most weird, you would never put this together, this story, but I think it's pretty valuable of how do we live a life and how do we let go of distractions. So how do we do that? And we're going to look at kind of a Christmas type story with this. So in Matthew 2, here are the 3 steps. First is I'm going to challenge you to think about your destination and your direction. Now, the only way you do that, all of you in here, I don't care if you're 70, I don't care if you're 7, all of you in here kind of 7, you're not doing it, but 17 or 70. Here's what I would challenge you to do. I want you to think about what is really important to you. What's really important? Not to me, not what you're supposed to say, like what really drives you. What gets you waking up in the morning? What do you get excited about? What's the thing if someone said, hey, we're going to take this away from you, you would be devastated, right? What are those things? What's truly important to you? Determine what's important. Look what it says in Matthew 2:1. It says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. These were not Jews. They maybe didn't even believe in the one true God at this point. It said, and asked, where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. Now, maybe you're watching online. Maybe those of you in this room, there's different layers of people. We have what I would call the Johnny and Susie Christians in here, okay? You guys raised in church, born and raised. You literally popped out. They baptized you. Like you. This is your game, right? Then you have another group here, and you're kind of like, I believe this stuff, Trent, I do, but don't go too far now, okay? Let's not get crazy with this. This isn't going to alter my life or anything. I'm still going to do my stuff, but, you're kind of in that middle. And then the rest of you were like literally smoking crayons as 3rd graders, and you're out there, and you're like, I don't even know if I buy into this. Wherever you're at, though, I'm going to challenge you with a phrase that I think is so true. And it's going to sound churchy, but it's not. Everyone worships something. Everyone. Now, you get to pick what you worship. That's the beauty of the free will all of you have. You get to pick right now in this moment what you worship. But I would challenge that all of you worship something. There was a very famous writer in the late 1990s, early 2000s named David Wallace Foster. And he was like one of the new postmoderns. So this guy he would not claim to be a follower of Jesus, would not claim to be a Christian. He actually, and I think it's unique because if I get up here and tell you, you got to worship, you're like, okay, sure. That's what you're supposed to say. You're on stage in a church, of course. Here's the guy that didn't believe any of that, right? And he actually wrote what the church at that time did not like his writings. Tragically, 2006 took his life. But he was speaking about a year before this at a college in Kenyon College. And I just want to give you the last part of his speech because here's coming from someone on the outside. And I think it's so profound. Okay, very intelligent guy. This is what he said at the end of his speech. He said, because here's something else that's true. We have it on good. Here we go. In day-to-day trenches of adult life, there's actually no such thing as atheism. even though he probably would claim to be. And he says, there's no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what we worship. And an outstanding reason for choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it Jesus or Allah, be it Yahweh or the Wiccan mother goddess or the Four Noble Truths, is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. Now think about this for a second. This is someone who would say, I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jesus follower at all. But I have noticed this about my life. Everyone around me worships something. And the people who worship something very small, that's why he said, maybe worship something bigger than you, because the people that worship something smaller than them, it literally consumes and eats them alive. Now, real quick, I'm going to go, and he said 4 things I thought were really profound. He said, if you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, you will never have enough. You won't. You'll never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Then he goes deeper. He says, if you worship your own body and beauty, you will always feel ugly. If that is something that truly consumes you, and when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally plant you. Pretty savage. Two more. Worship power. You'll feel weak and afraid, and you'll need ever more power over others to keep that fear at bay. And then finally, he said, if you worship your intellect, your intelligence, being seen as smart, you'll end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out, and so on. So I say that today because here's what I'm going to challenge you. No matter what even if you don't believe anything I say, if you really think about it, all of us have to worship something. And some of you are like, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's you, right? We can worship ourselves. We can worship people that we admire. But at the end of the day, we have to choose what we worship. Look at the end of verse 2. It says, we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. So I would challenge you, what are you worshiping? What star? What's your true north that you're chasing? Is it Jesus? Is it God the Father? Or is it my job? Is it my children? Right? For a lot of us, I think it's very tempting in this culture. Like we literally worship, our kids consume us. They're like, don't you, I just love my kids. I agree. We're called to love our kids. No, I'm saying it's an unhealthy, like I'm consumed by them. Well, my kid's struggling. So that means I'm going to have a terrible day, right? It would be called worshiping something else. Single guys in here, what happens? You've been single for too long. You finally get a girl. What happens? Oh, you worship the ground she walks on. Well, what's that mean? It means I'm consumed by this person. Now, my wife is filming in here. She actually came in the back room and said she was getting dizzy. So if we're watching and that chair falls over and you hear a loud thud, then she passed out and we probably need to stop and we'll help her out. Thanks. I'm glad to draw a lot of attention to you. Okay, everybody's looking at you now. Okay. But I did this in the first service, and I will do it again in the 11th because I think it's important. My wife being married to her, exceptional human. Really, I live with her, and I can say that and I'm not trying to make other people feel bad. It's not a competition, girls, no. But she's taught me a few very important life lessons. One, she's very purposeful in what matters to her. And here's what I've always found really profound. When my son Tayden, who's a senior now, both my kids are seniors, when he had his very first T-ball practice, I'll never forget this. He had his first T-ball practice, and I remember that I got a phone call that day as I was leaving work, and it was an emergency. Not a major emergency, not someone had died, but people were having problems, and they just said, can we please talk to you? So I chose, instead of going to his practice, I went. Now, I remember when I got to his practice, it was late. Very first T-ball practice ever. And I could tell she's kind of ticked. She's not real happy. She's not mad. She's just kind of whatever, right? And in my mind, I thought, it's T-ball practice. Not even a T-ball game, right? The coach, real, like, we're not talking about game. We're talking about practice. I'm talking about practice. And I remember I could just tell, like, I'm probably not. I think it's a good idea to skip something for a T-ball practice. And I remember she said this. She said, look, in your job and what you do, there's always going to be emergencies. There's always going to be somebody that has something going on that's urgent to them that they're going to say is urgent to you. And she said this. Never forget it. So this is what? My son's 18, so 13 years ago. She said, I just don't want you to trade what's urgent for what's ultimate. That's all I'm asking. And I'm telling you, that hit me so I was like, that is like genius. And I would say that to some of you, don't trade off daily what's urgent for what's ultimate. Don't do it. So that's what we do. We got to determine what's important. Then the second thing is you've got to stay focused on what's important. You see, determining it isn't the hardest part of this. What's the hardest thing is can I stay focused on what's truly important? This is where distractions come in. Look what it says in verse 9 of Matthew 2. It says, after they heard, talking about the Magi, the king, they went on their way. And the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them till it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. Now, scholars believe that the Magi from the east started in what's now modern-day Iraq. So to get to Bethlehem, if you look on a map, that's 900 miles. So to travel in that time, we're looking at least 5 or 6 months. Now, you think when you see the star and one of the guys looking there is like, hey, dude, I think we're supposed to follow this star. I think the star is pointing us somewhere. And they start walking. Do you think there was distractions over 5, 6, 8 months? Of course there were. You think there wasn't moments at night they're camping out and one of the guys said, do you even know what we're doing? Do any of us know what we're doing? You see, that's the voices that come in. That's the distracting voices. That's how it works. So for a few of us, not only do we never define what we're chasing or what we worship, we also are so distracted by everything we never have a chance to finally or truly pursue it. Now, this is a little bit graphic. So if you have little kids, you may nothing. This isn't Saw 4. I'm not showing Saw 4 up here, but I will say what's interesting to me, the French, really the Europeans are pretty good at torture. During the dark periods and dark ages, they did a lot of really unique things with torture. And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. But the Europeans have come up with a lot of ways to torture us, okay? Let's think about that. What are some of those? Well, you have soccer, right? No soccer fans? Can somebody amen that? Roll call, right? No. Anyways, but here's the thing. The French came up with one. I want to show you a picture of this. Yeah, it's up there. So this is where they would take a man or a woman or whoever the torturing. I don't know what the guy in front's doing, but they'd tie him in 4 different and put horses in 4 different locations. The reason I share that picture with you, it's not to be graphic or gross, but it's profound to me. This form of torture by the French, and I won't say it in the actual French, actually means death by distraction. Now, the reason I share it with you is because I would challenge most of us, it's not even after we decide or we know, hey, this is who I want to be, this is what I want people to say about me when it's all gone, when it's all said and done. Because here's the thing, newsflash, all of you in here, you get one life. Do you know that? You don't get a do-over. You don't get a mulligan. You get one life. So I'm not telling you have to make it count. I'm just saying if you don't, it's done. There is no, let me get it back again, do-over. Anyone remember playing football when you were a kid? We played in our yard. We'd have neighborhood kids. They'd come from a mile or 2 away to come play. And I always loved, remember what happened if you had a call or something was shady and both groups argued over it? What'd you do? None of you play football in your backyard? Did any of you do anything? You just hide under a rock? Like, that's why we're so pale. We don't like sunlight. No. Remember, you'd be arguing. You're about to fist fight. And what would one say? It was the only thing you could do as a kid. One wise person would stand up and say, do over. And everyone just treated it like it didn't happen, right? Like, all right, 2nd and 8 again. Here we go. Right? Bad pitch and wiffle ball. Do-over. But life doesn't give do-overs. And for a lot of you here, you're being pulled in 4 different directions. Does this sound familiar? Every single day. And it's literally killing you. I love this quote from Andy Stanley. He said, the things I get distracted by are never as important as the thing I get distracted from. That's genius. The things I get distracted by are never as important as the thing I get distracted from. My wife will tell you, she has a friend, older friend, who now has grandbabies. And she said she'll come into school at work and literally just be like freaking out. Because she's like, I'm telling you, I watch my own kids. She's talking about her own kids. She's like, they're married. They got 2 little kids. And every time I go over there and visit them, it makes me sick at my stomach because here's my daughter. Here's my son. Here's the family. They're all just on their phones. It's like they're literally missing their kids growing up. Now, I know we all sound old. I know the young groups here are just like, you're a dinosaur, dude. You don't even know what Snapchat is. Oh, I know. I know what Fence is. How about that? Is that even a thing anymore? Probably not. Anyways, but here's the whole thing with that. And this is why it's so important. Most of the things I get distracted by are never that important. And they're never as important as the things I'm getting distracted from. So here's just kind of a simple playbook for life. Determine what's important. Determine what you're going to worship when it's all said and done. Is it school? Is it somebody else? Is it yourself? Is it sports? And then ultimately after that, you got to determine, now I want to stay focused when it's all said and done on what's most important, not be distracted. Now, get real kind of churchy for a second, but it's true. And then the thing I would challenge you with is from verse 12. Now you got to learn to listen and allow God to direct you. Because here's the crazy thing to me about Jesus, okay? Jesus was very, I think we all picture him in a lot of different ways, but one thing's very unique about Jesus is people are constantly trying to get him off his course. People are trying to trap him up into saying something he shouldn't have said. Could you imagine having lawyers follow you, literally days on days, just making notes to see if you say one wrong thing so they can claim you're not who you say you are? Can you imagine your own followers saying, listen, I know you're saying you're going to the cross, but I don't want you to go to the cross. Could you imagine looking at one of your closest friends and saying, get behind me, Satan? You have no clue what you're talking about. Jesus did not get derailed. But at the exact same time, if you read through his life, you'll find that he would be walking and they're like, hey, we're going here. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to go talk to this person. Or someone would grab him and touch his clothes and he would literally stop and be all about that person. So here's why you have to lean on God and listen to him. Because you have to learn the difference between daily distractions and divine disruptions. You see, I have to learn what's most important in my life because I can get distracted doing a lot of things that don't matter. But there are moments in my life, just like yours, where there's actually moments I think God brings people and moments for you. And you got to embrace that moment. Look what it says in verse 12. These are the Magi again. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Here's what I want to challenge you to do today. I want to challenge you today to go home different. Okay? I really mean that. I pray. That's this whole week, even just looking back over this, I thought, what's the one action step I want to give you guys? I'm praying that you, when you leave here today, not that you say, oh, it was good or it wasn't good or I would, whatever. I want to challenge you or those watching, listening online, I want to challenge you to go home a different way. Go home a different way. And here's my challenge for you. Simple step. How do we keep this kind of life of not being distracted? I want to challenge you to be in the moment. Be in the moment. Now, I want to share a picture with you because I think it's such a good picture of society. I want you to see every person is trying, this must have been some cool moment, right? Every person wants to make sure that they catch this moment, except this really cute, sweet little old lady who I think I would like. I just like her smile. But you know what's cool about this picture to me and also kind of sad at the same moment is she is literally just in the moment. Just be in the moment. A couple of my friends, I meet with them every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. One attends here, the other's at C3 Berg. Every Tuesday at 6 a.m. And the last couple of weeks, both of them have been talking about in their own life how to be in the moment, how to be truly present. When your spouse or your kids are talking to you, be present. Be in the moment. I'm telling you, that's the one thing Jesus did. It's so profound. God, I know what you called me to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish the course no matter what. I know what's important to me. But I also want to be in the moment. When people come, we actually had a lunch Thursday, this past Thursday, and I felt awful because I had a coach who literally texted me and said, hey, I need you by your phone. This coach may be calling you. He might want to be contacting your son. But when I call or he calls, I need you to answer. Well, I'm having this dinner for basically a going away party for a great friend of mine. And I had to sit at this table with 12 people. And I set my phone right in the middle. And the second I did it, I just cringed. So I'm trying to make excuses. I'm like, hey, guys, sorry, I'm waiting on an important call. I might have to step out and take this call. Because I hate it. Because I know, and you know as well as I do, I'm not in the moment. I'm not in the moment. If you come and talk to me, imagine this. Imagine you find out that your wife just cheated on you, okay? And you're like, hey, Trent, my world is falling apart. Everything's falling apart. I'm freaking out. My wife just cheated on me. Can we talk? And I'm like, yeah, meet me at C3. We'll go. This is my counseling office back here. I put you on the couch. I lay down. No, I don't do that. But we'll be back there. We're sitting down, okay? And you're literally, you can't even look up. You're in tears. You're like, I know she cheated. It's with my best friend. He's built way better than me. I'm a fat slob. Da-da-da, da-da-da. And you look up after pouring your heart out. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Oh, I got you, right? I promise in that moment, you would be devastated. Yet we do that to the people we care about most all the time. I'm so guilty of this. Be in the moment. Now, I'm going to come back to my wife, sweet baby Jay, one more time, and we're going to pray. My wife, even though she never told her kids this, but I want them to hear it now because in a couple months, they may move out of our house. They may never live with us again come 6-8 months from now. They graduate. Who knows what's going to happen. But if even no one else hears this, I'll talk to my kids. I want them to hear this. My wife never said any of these rules out loud. But if you have kids here, especially little kids, if you're young, getting ready to have children or going to be married, I can tell you some of the most genius things. My wife is an evil genius. Here's a couple of things that she's always done. And I've watched her. It's pretty awesome to make your life count and be in the moment. First is this. She said, even when they're tiny and they're little rugrats and complete turds, she would say, I never tell my kids no. Now, I know some of you guys in here are like, I'll tell them with a belt no. My kids, by God, my kids no. We did that too. It's not you don't ever get punished or whatever. But what she was saying was, anytime Tayden or Tegan, my two kids' names, ever said, hey, Mom, can we go outside? Hey, Mom, will you help me with this? Her rule, internal clock was, I'll never say no. If they're asking me to be part of something they're doing, I will not say no. Now, she still worked a full-time job. And here's the best part about that. It's an amazing way to raise our kids, but I didn't agree to that, right? So there'd be times they're like, hey, we're all going to go jump on the trampoline. She's like, hey, are you going? I'm like, that's not my rule. That's yours, right? My rule is watch TV. But then you're sitting there and they're like, man, it hits you. What's important? What's really important? Never say no. But here's a little trick that she's done. And she still does it. My kids don't probably even know this. But after I say it, they'll be like, it makes sense. She has a rule to be all in before all of us leave in the morning to go wherever we're going. She has a rule to be all in if she's home and anyone comes home. And she has a rule to be all in before everybody goes to bed. And I can't tell you how many times I've been busy doing something that's so important I got to get done. And I watch and she's just having a conversation with one of the two. Because she made a rule a long time ago. When we wake up, before we leave, I'm going to be all in. As you guys get on the bus, I'm all in. As you come home from school, I'm all in. Even if it's for 5 minutes. As you go to bed, whatever's going on, whatever, I'm all in. You see, she knows way more than I do what it means to be in the moment. Now, I made up this quote, and it stinks. But I want to say this before we pray. Okay? Nobody lives without distractions. You see, all of you have normal jobs. I just get to set my underwear on YouTube and come up with this stuff. But nobody lives without distractions. So we have to make sure we're being distracted by the right things. All of you are distracted, as am I. But here's the question I want to challenge you with. Are you getting derailed and distracted by the right things or things that don't matter? Because I promise you this, when it's all said and done and they put you in a box, you'll want your life to matter what matters to you. So why don't you define it? Why don't you realize there's going to be distractions and ultimately realize at the end of the day, I've got to have this daily thing where God, you've got to help me kind of decipher what I got to do and what I walk away from. They went home a different way. As we pray today, if you would just join me for a second. Here's my prayer for you. My prayer is that every person in this room, I mean this, it's such a simple yet hard thing to do, that you guys, to let go of distractions, would join me in this prayer by saying, God, help me to leave here and go home a different way. God, help me to be more in the moment with the people I care about most. God, help me be more in the moment for people that I don't care that much about. But I know you brought them in my path for a reason. And here's the final prayer. God, help me not to be distracted by things that a year from now or a month from now mean nothing. And that's so many of us. Father, I thank you today for this group. Thank you for our opportunity to come together. Thank you for the band leading us in worship. And it's my prayer, a very simple prayer, that we would walk out of these doors and just like these wise men who encountered truly the one worth worshiping, we would go home, and we would literally go home a different way. We would be just like Jesus, your son, who taught us, as he said, come follow me. Why do we follow Jesus? So we can truly live, not just in eternity, but actually on this earth, that we can live a life that has great meaning by living like your son, who gave us this perfect example of what it means to truly live while we're on earth. So, Father, I pray today that you help us to be more like him. You would help us to not be distracted by things that don't matter. You'd help us to forgive and let go as people cross us. And more than anything else, we would learn to be in the moment every time. Help us to see people every time we lock eyes with someone else, realizing they have incredible value to you, the God of the universe, that we would treat them as such. Help us to be more like your son. And for somebody watching online, or those of you who are in this room, maybe today you've never put your faith and trust in Jesus. You would not call yourself a follower or a Christian. And today God's just speaking to your heart. Something feels different. Today may be the day for you to take a big step. And it's the day you surrender to God. You can say a prayer something like this. God, I know I've made a mess of things. God, I know I've been worshiping all the wrong things. But today I'm asking you to forgive me. I'm putting my faith and trust in your son, Jesus, so I can be forgiven and have real life. So here's your prayer. Something really simple like this. Jesus, thank you for saving and forgiving me. Give me that new life. Now, with nobody looking around, just really fast, if you for the first time in your life truly made that, if you're watching online, first time you've ever done that, let's do something really bold. The Bible tells us that literally every angel in heaven celebrates when one person turns back, follow Christ. Every angel. So since they celebrate, we want to celebrate. So if that's you, this morning, do something really bold. I'm going to make you stand up. You don't have to look at me. But just so we can celebrate as a group, if you would just lift your hand, just hold it up for just a second till I see it and acknowledge it. You can put it back down. If that's you today, say, Trent, today's the day. Ask Jesus to save me, forgive me. If that's you, put it up. Let us celebrate. Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? Lift your hand, put it right back. Great. Jesus, so thankful for the lives you continue to change. Thankful for the baptisms, people taking next steps in the near future. Just all the amazing things you're doing. Help us today as we walk out of here to go a different way. Help us to be in the moment. We ask these things in your son's name, and amen. All right, guys, brave the cold. Thanks for being here. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Moving on, won't be coming back again. Summer nights, feeling sweeter than the holidays. If I take it slow, this ain't never gonna end. Oh, too many games to be playing. Don't know how long I can stay. Been in my room contemplating. Sometimes things don't make sense. Is it my dreams? Is it the medicine that keeps me alive? 'Cause I can decide just what it means. I'm in my head again. And days tonight, and those days tonight. So Tristan, got me dreaming about some things again. I rest my bones till the morning comes alive. Oh, too many games to be played. Don't know how long I can stay. Been in my room contemplating. Sometimes things don't make sense. Is it my dreams? Is it the medicine that keeps me alive? 'Cause I can't decide just what it means. And I'm in my head again. From days to night, in those days to night, I just gotta take all my medicine just so I can feel like myself again. I just gotta take all my medicine. And I just gotta take all my medicine just so I can feel like myself.